The deep space scanner beeped 3 times, and Professor Velther moved all 4 of his arms toward the display screen, his species. The Corvinians were known across the galaxy as the best archaeologists, and Velther had spent 40 years studying ancient civilizations. What he saw on the screen made his breathing slow. "Captain Gento, please come to the lab immediately," Velther said into his communicator. The Varsian security chief arrived within minutes, her scaled face showing concern. "What is wrong, Professor?" Velther pointed at the readings with his upper left arm. "We found something in the asteroid field. Something that should not exist." The object buried deep in the ancient rocks was a ship. But the dating scan showed an age that seemed impossible, 47,000 years old. The oldest known spacefaring civilization, the progenitors, had existed only 32,000 years ago. This vessel predated them by 15,000 years. "Run the scan again." Captain Genko ordered they ran it 5 more times. The results never changed within hours. The news reached the Galactic Council, and scientists from 20 different species requested to join the expedition. The council sent their own representatives, including Dr. Patricia Moore from Earth. Patricia was a xenarchaeologist who had made her career studying how different species developed space travel. She arrived on the research vessel 3 days later, along with Commander Kyle Harrison. Kyle was a military liaison from Earth, someone the human government sent to observe important discoveries. Patricia noticed Kyle seemed quiet during the briefing, more reserved than the file on him suggested. "The vessel is remarkably preserved," Velther explained, showing holographic images of the ship. "The whole material is unlike anything in our databases. It has survived 47,000 years without significant degradation." The ship had a strange design, sleek but somehow primitive compared to modern vessels. It measured roughly 200 meters long with a cylindrical main body and 2 angular wings. Patricia studied the images carefully, noting the placement of what appeared to be engine ports. Commander Kyle Harrison stared at the display, and Patricia saw his hands grip the edge of the table. His face had gone pale. "Commander Harrison, are you feeling well?" Velther asked. Kyle did not answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on one particular angle of the ship, where a nameplate should be located on human vessels. "I need to see the exterior markings," Kyle said, his voice rough. "Can you enhance the forward section, port side?" Velther manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the area. Kyle indicated that the image was grainy, covered in 47,000 years of space dust and micro-asteroid impacts. But there was something there, something that might have been letters or symbols. "The symbols are too degraded," Velther said with regret. "We will need to board the vessel and clean the hull to see them clearly." Kyle stood up abruptly. "I need to be on the boarding team." Captain Genko's eyes narrowed. "Commander Harrison, this is a scientific expedition, not a military operation." "I understand that," Kyle replied. "But Earth has a right to send a representative aboard, and I am volunteering." Patricia watched the exchange with growing curiosity. Something about the ship had shaken Kyle deeply. The boarding team was assembled the next day. Volthar led the group, accompanied by Patricia, Kyle, Lieutenant Greg Martinez, who was a human pilot, and 3 other scientists, including an insectoid researcher named Comix. They traveled in a small shuttle toward the asteroid field. The ancient ship appeared slowly as they approached, emerging from the rocks like a ghost from the past. "Remarkable," Comix chittered. "The structural integrity appears sound." Greg Martinez guided the shuttle closer, his movements careful and precise, getting some weird readings from the hull. Greg reported, "The material is definitely not standard alloy. It is absorbing our scanner beams." They docked at what appeared to be an airlock. The seal was ancient, but still functional after. Velther's team applied modern coupling technology. Atmospheric scan shows the interior is in vacuum. Patricia reported, We will need to stay in suits. The airlock door resisted at first, then slid open with a grinding sound that transmitted through their suit vibrations. The interior corridor was dark until their lights swept across it. Patricia gasped. The corridor was clean. Almost pristine. 47,000 years should have left the interior choked with dust and degradation. Instead, the walls looked like they had been abandoned only decades ago. This is impossible, Velther whispered. The preservation is beyond any technology we know. Kyle moved past them, his light sweeping across the walls. He was looking for something specific. They found it 20 meters down the corridor, a panel with text symbols. Patricia stepped closer, her training kicking in as she began to photograph and analyze. The symbols were not like progenitor writing or any other ancient language. They were familiar in a way that made her stomach tighten. These are mathematical notations, she said slowly. They match human mathematical expressions. That cannot be correct. Velther objected. Humanity only achieved space travel 300 years ago. I know what I am seeing. Patricia insisted. She pulled up comparison charts on her suit's display. The symbols were identical to human mathematics. Kyle had moved ahead of the group. They heard him make a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Patricia ran to catch up with him. He was standing in what appeared to be a control room. The walls were covered in dormant display screens and control panels. Kyle, what is going on? Patricia demanded. The commander was shaking. He walked to a specific panel on the right side of the room and touched a sequence of buttons. Nothing happened at first, then power hummed. Through the ancient system's emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in a dim red glow. A holographic display activated in the center of the room. The image was corrupted and fragmented, but it showed a star chart. One system was marked clearly. Patricia recognized it immediately. That is the Sol system, she breathed. That is Earth's home. Velther moved closer to Kyle. Commander Harrison, you need to explain what you know about this vessel. Kyle's face was wet with tears inside his helmet. Her name is Aurora, he whispered, and I thought I lost her forever. He walked to another panel, one hidden behind a maintenance cover. His fingers moved with practiced certainty. Entering a Koge compartment opened with a hiss of ancient seals breaking. Inside was a crystal data storage device, the kind humans used in the 23rd century. It was dated in Earth's calendar system. Year read 2247. Patricia felt the world shift around her. Kyle, humanity did not have faster than light travel in 2247, she said. Our first FTL voyage was in 2387. Kyle picked up the crystal with trembling hands. I know when humanity achieved FTL travel, he said. Quietly, I was there. He turned to face the assembled team. But before that official first voyage, there was an experimental mission, one that was classified and then buried when it went wrong. This ship is from that mission. Velther's forearms spread wide in confusion. You are saying this human vessel traveled back in time 47,000 years? No, Kyle said, his voice breaking. I am saying I was the captain of this ship. And when our experimental drive failed, I was thrown forward in time 300 years. The Aurora and everyone aboard went in the other direction. The words hung in the air like an impossible verdict. The galaxy's oldest ship was human, and the man who had commanded her was standing in her control room after 47,000 years. Patricia looked at Kyle. Harrison with new eyes. The crew, she whispered. What happened to the 2,000 people aboard? Kyle closed his eyes. I do not know, but I am going to find out. The interrogation room on the research vessel was small and cold. Kyle Harrison sat across from Fleet Admiral Linda Cross, whose image appeared on the holographic display. Patricia Moore stood against the wall, watching Commander Harrison. I need you to explain everything from the beginning." Admiral Cross said. Her voice was firm, but not unkind. Kyle took a deep breath. In 2247, Earth had just developed what we called the Harrison Drive, named after my grandfather, who invented it. The government wanted to test it with a full colonial mission. Aurora was built to carry 2,000 colonists to a planet called New Hope, 17 light years from Earth. Patricia leaned forward. The Harrison Drive? I studied that in academy history. It was considered a theoretical failure. Because it was, Kyle said bitterly. Or at least, it failed in ways we never predicted. He continued his story, speaking words he had kept locked inside for decades. I was 32 years old when I took command of Aurora, the youngest captain in the colonial fleet. My wife Sarah was chief medical officer. My daughter Emma was only 8 years old. The launch went perfectly. The initial jump calculations were correct. Then something happened during the FDL transition. Kyle's hand clenched into fists. There was a flash of light, brighter than anything I had ever seen. The ship shook violently. An alarm screamed across every system. I remember reaching for the emergency shutdown, then nothing. When I woke up, I was in an escape pod drifting in normal space. A cargo freighter found me 3 days later. They told me it was the year 2547. 300 years after my launch. Admiral Cross nodded slowly. We have the records from your recovery. They are still classified. The official story was that you were part of a deep space survey that suffered a catastrophic failure. That was the cover story the government created. Kyle agreed. They told me Aurora had been destroyed, that everyone aboard was dead. They said the Harrison Drive had created a temporal anomaly that threw me forward in time. I spent years in therapy, trying to accept that my family and crew were gone. Patricia felt tears in her own eyes. But they were not destroyed. No, Kyle whispered. They went backward. And I never knew. Velther entered the room, carrying a datapad. Commander Harrison, we have begun analyzing the crystal you recovered. The data is fragmentary, but we found something you need to see. The hologram changed to show text entries from Aurora's log. The words were written in English captain's log. Kyle Harrison, Earth date March 15th, 2247. We have experienced a catastrophic failure during Pace. FDL. Transition. Captain Harrison was thrown from the ship during the event. Emergency protocols have placed me. First Officer Dan Cooper. In command. We are conducting search operations, but have found no sign of the captain's pod. The timestamp made Patricia's head spin. This log was written 47,000 years ago. Velther manipulated the display. There are hundreds of entries, spanning 3 years after the incident. Another log appeared. First Officer's log. Dan Cooper, Earth date June 3rd, 2247. We have accepted that Captain Harrison is gone. Our attempts to recreate the FDL jump to return home have failed. We have detected inhabited planets in this region of space after careful consideration. We have decided to avoid contact. The crew agrees that we cannot risk contaminating the development of alien civilizations. We do not belong in this time. Kyle read the words with shaking hands. Dan Cooper was my best friend. We went through academy together. More log entries followed, painting a picture of Aurora's crew struggling to survive. They had rationed supplies, established strict protocols, and maintained discipline despite knowing they were stranded. Medical Officer's log. Sarah Harrison. Earth date August 12th, 2247. The crew's morale is declining. Many are asking about Kyle, wondering if he survived. I tell them what I tell Emma every night. Her father was the bravest person I knew, and if there was any way to survive, he found. I'd have to believe that I have to believe he is somewhere. Someone alive. Kyle stood up abruptly and walked to the corner of the room. Patricia saw his shoulders shaking. Admiral Cross spoke gently. Commander, we can stop if you need time. No. Kyle managed. I need to know what happened to them. Velther continued showing log entries. The crew had discovered that the damaged Harrison drive was leaking radiation. They had tried to repair it, but the exotic particles were beyond their ability to contain. First Officer's log, Dan Cooper. Earth date February 28th, 2250 We. Air dying. The radiation exposure is killing us slowly. Sarah Harrison estimates. We have less than a year left. We have made a decision. We will place Aurora in the asteroid field we discovered last month. The ship will be preserved there, protected from the elements. If Kyle somehow survived, if he is out there in the future, maybe someday he will find her. Maybe he will know we never gave up hope. Patricia wiped her eyes. The crew had known they were dying and had spent their final months preserving the ship. There is more, Velther said quietly. He brought up a final log entry. Captain's log, Dan Cooper. Earth date January 3rd, 2251. This will be my last entry. The crew has gathered in the main hall for a final ceremony. We have placed personal effects, letters, and cultural records in a secure vault. Sarah and Emma recorded messages for Kyle. We all did. We want him to know that we do not blame him. What happened was not his fault. We were explorers. We knew the risks if he finds this ship someday. We want him to know we died as we lived, with hope, with courage, and with love for the man who led us to the stars. Tell Kyle we forgive him. Tell him we were honored to serve with him. Tell him to live, to be happy, to find peace. This is Captain Dan Cooper of the Earth colonial ship Aurora. Final log entry complete. The room was silent, except for the sound of Kyle Harrison crying. After several minutes, he turned back to face them. Where's the vault? He asked. Where did they leave the messages? Cormac spoke up from the doorway. We found a sealed compartment in the crew quarters section. It requires a command code to open. Kyle straightened his shoulders. Take me there. They suited up again and returned to Aurora. The ancient ship felt different now. Not like a ghost, but like a memorial. Kyle led them through corridors he had walked 500 years ago. The sealed compartment was marked with a simple plaque FOR. Captain Kyle Harrison, whenever you are. Kyle entered his command code. The vault opened with a soft hiss. Inside were hundreds of data crystals, physical photographs, children's drawings, and personal items. In the center was a hologram projector. Kyle activated it. The image that appeared showed Sarah Harrison and a young girl with her father's eyes. Hello, Kyle. Sarah's voice said across 47,000 years. If you were watching this, then you survived, and you found our ship. I am so proud of you. Kyle fell to his knees. Patricia and the others stepped back, giving him privacy for a reunion that transcended time itself. The message continued, and through his tears, Kyle Harrison finally heard the words he had needed for 300 years. You are forgiven, you are loved. You are not alone. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with representatives from 87 different species. Council Speaker Mordith stood at the central podium, his tentacles gesturing for silence. This session will address the recent discovery in the Kepler sector, he announced. The vessel known as Aurora has been confirmed as human in origin, predating all known civilizations by 15,000 years. A murmur ran through the chamber. Ambassador Thilwyn from the Dalarian Confederacy stood. Speaker Mordith. This claim is absurd. Humanity has only been spacefaring for 300 years. We have records. We have treaties based on their recent emergence. Patricia Moore stepped forward to the testimony platform. Ambassador, I understand your skepticism, but the evidence is overwhelming. She activated a holographic display showing the ship's interior. The Aurora contains technology, language, and cultural artifacts that are undeniably human. Furthermore, the crew left behind extensive logs and personal records. A Corvinian scientist raised multiple arms. Dr. Moore, are you suggesting humanity had advanced civilization 47,000 years ago? No, Patricia replied. I am confirming what Commander Kyle Harrison has testified. The Aurora traveled backward in time. Through a failed experimental faster-than-light drive, the chamber erupted in arguments time. Travel was considered theoretical impossibility. By most galactic scientists, Mordith called for order. Commander Harrison, please approach. Kyle walked to the platform, his military uniform crisp, but his face showing the strain of the past weeks. Commander, you claim to have been the captain of Aurora in the year 2247. Yes. Council Speaker, and you were thrown 300 years into your own future while your ship traveled 47,000 years into the past. That is correct, a Varsian elder stood, her scales gleaming under the chamber lights. This is the most extraordinary claim I have heard in my 200 years of service. How can we possibly verify such a story? Dr. Henry Kim, a human temporal physicist, stepped forward. Council members, I have been studying the Harrison drive schematics that Commander Harrison provided. The mathematics support the possibility of a temporal rift during FTL transition. The energy signatures we detected in the Aurora's engine core match theoretical models for temporal displacement. He brought up complex equations that filled the holographic display when the Harrison drive failed. It created what we call a temporal shockwave. Commander Harrison was in an escape pod at the moment of the wave's expansion. The pod acted like a surfboard on an ocean wave, carrying him forward. The Aurora, being at the epicenter, was pulled backward with tremendous force. Velther added his voice. We have also discovered something remarkable in Aurora's database. The crew documented their location using stellar navigation. When we compare their star charts to modern astronomical records, everything matches perfectly. The stars were exactly where they should have been 47,000 years ago. The evidence was mounting. But many council members still looked doubtful. Kyle decided to speak from his heart. Council members, I know this is difficult to accept. For 300 years, I have lived with the guilt of losing my crew. I was told they were dead, that the experiment had failed catastrophically. I tried to build a new life, but I never stopped wondering if I could have done something different. His voice grew stronger. When I saw Aurora on those scans, I recognized her immediately. I knew the placement of every panel, every corridor, every system. That ship was my home, and those people were my family. I am not asking you to take my word alone. I am asking you to look at the evidence. A young Delarian scientist stood. Commander Harrison, if what you say is true, then your crew lived 47,000 years ago. They would have been the first spacefaring beings in our region of the galaxy. Did they encounter any alien species? Kyle nodded. According to their logs, yes. They detected several inhabited worlds. But First Officer Dan Cooper made the decision to avoid contact. They did not want to interfere with the natural development of civilizations. The Varsian elder leaned forward with interest. Which worlds did they detect? Patricia pulled up a star chart from Aurora's database. 3 primary systems. One was the Varsian home system. Another was the Corvinian home world. The third was a planet in the Delarian sector. The chamber went silent. The Varsian elder's eyes widened. There are ancient cave paintings on Varsia Prime. They show strange beings who watched from the sky but never descended. Our oldest legends speak of the silent observers. We always assumed they were mythological. Velther's arms trembled with excitement. The Corvinian religious texts mention the Watchers in the Dark, the beings who visited our system in the time of beginning. Our scholars interpreted this as metaphorical, but what if it was literal? More council members began sharing similar stories, ancient legends, cave paintings, cultural myths about mysterious observers who appeared and vanished. The pieces were falling into place. Kyle felt a strange mixture of pride and Sorrow. My crew spent 3 years knowing they were dying, he said quietly. They could have tried to take over primitive worlds, set themselves up as gods, used their technology to build an empire. Instead, they chose to hide, to observe without interfering. They died alone in an asteroid field to protect civilizations they would never see flourish. Ambassador Thulwyn stood again. But this time, his tone was respectful. Commander Harrison, if your crew showed such restraint and wisdom, then they were remarkable people. They were. Kyle agreed, and they deserved to be remembered. Council Speaker Mordeth raised his tentacles. This council must decide how to proceed. The Aurora is a historical artifact of unprecedented importance. It also represents a connection to humanity's past and the galaxy's ancient history. Patricia spoke up, Council Speaker. I propose that Aurora be restored and converted into a memorial and research station. It belongs to all of us now, human and alien alike. It is proof that even in our darkest moments, we can choose to do what is right. The council debated for hours. Finally, Mordeth called for a vote. The motion passed with overwhelming support. Aurora would be preserved as a joint memorial. Kyle Harrison was offered the position of curator. Will you accept this role, Commander? Mordeth asked. Kyle looked at the holographic image of Aurora floating above the council floor. His ship, his home. His second chance. I will, he said, but I want to request something. Speak freely. I want a team of humans and aliens to work together on the restoration. My crew believed in cooperation between species, even though they never got to see it happen. Let us make their dream real. The council agreed. Ambassador Thulwyn approached Kyle after the session ended. Commander, I must admit I doubted your story, but you have convinced me, not through technology or science, but through the character of your crew. People who would sacrifice everything to protect strangers. That is the mark of true nobility. Kyle shook the ambassador's hand. They were ordinary people who did extraordinary things. They were explorers who found themselves in an impossible situation and chose kindness over power. That is the legacy I want to preserve. Patricia joined them. Kyle, we found something else in the database. What? A message from your daughter Emma. She recorded it separately from her mother's. She was 8 years old. But her words might be what you need to hear most. Kyle felt tears threatening again. What did she say? Patricia smiled gently. She said, Daddy, if you are listening to this, it means you are still being brave. Mom says brave people do not give up, even when things are scary. I want you to keep being brave. And I want you to be happy. That is what would make me happy, wherever I am. Kyle closed his eyes. After 300 years of guilt and 47,000 years of separation, his daughter's words finally set him free. Then I will be happy, he whispered. I promise. 6 months after the council vote, Aurora floated in a specially constructed dock above Varsian Prime. The restoration project had attracted volunteers from across the galaxy. Kyle Harrison stood in the main engineering bay, watching a mixed crew of humans and aliens work together. Lieutenant Nicole Bennett, a human security officer, approached with a datapad. Commander, the structural team has finished reinforcing the hull. Chief Engineer Culver says we can begin powering up the main systems tomorrow. Kyle nodded. Culver was a massive being from a high-gravity world, and his expertise in ancient technology had proven invaluable. How is the database recovery going? Dr. Kim says they have restored about 60% of the crew logs. Nicole reported. Some of the files are damaged beyond repair, but we are finding new entries every day. Patricia Moore emerged from a corridor, her face flushed with excitement. Kyle, you need to see what we found in the medical bay. He followed her through the restored corridors. The ship looked more like herself now. cleaned and repaired, but still bearing the marks of age. The medical bay had been one of the most challenging areas to restore. It was here that Sarah Harrison had treated the dying crew as radiation slowly killed them. What did you find? Kyle asked. Patricia led him to a sealed cabinet. We discovered that Sarah was not just documenting the crew's decline. She was conducting research. She opened the cabinet to reveal hundreds of carefully labeled samples. These are genetic samples from every member of the crew. Sarah preserved tissue samples, blood work, even hair and nail clippings. Kyle stared at the collection. Why would she do this? Dr. Henry Kim entered the room. Because she was thinking about the future, he said. Look at this log entry we just recovered. A hologram activated, showing Sarah Harrison in her medical uniform. Her face was thin, marked by the illness consuming her. Personal log, Dr. Sarah Harrison. Earth date October 15th, 2250. I know we are dying. The radiation has damaged our cells beyond repair, but I refuse to let our existence end without meaning. I have collected genetic and cultural samples from the entire crew. 2,000 people. Their DNA, their family histories, their personal stories. If Kyle finds this ship, or if anyone finds it, they will know who we were. They will know that Earth in the 23rd century was a world of dreamers and explorers. They will know that we loved our families, that we believed in something bigger than ourselves. Sarah paused, her eyes glistening. Kyle, if you are watching this, I want you to know that our daughter grew into a remarkable young woman. Emma helped me organize these samples. She understood the importance of preserving our legacy. She asked me to tell you that she studied stellar navigation. Just like you, she wanted to be a captain like her father. The hologram flickered. We are leaving behind more than just our genetic code. In the cultural archive, you will find music, art, literature, and personal letters from the crew. You will find Emma's drawings, my medical journals, Dan Cooper's poetry. We are giving you a window into our time, our world, our hearts. The message ended. Kyle sat down heavily. My daughter wanted to be a captain. Patricia placed a hand on his shoulder. Kyle, there is more. We found her personal logs. She activated another recording. This one showed Emma Harrison at age 11. Her face thinner than in earlier recordings, but her eyes still bright. Hi, Dad, Emma said to the camera. Mom says I should record a message for you. So here it is. I have been helping Mom in the medical bay. I know we are all sick, but I am not scared. Do you want to know why? Because you taught me that explorers are not people who are never afraid. Explorers are people who are afraid but keep going anyway. You told me that before our launch, remember? I was scared about leaving Earth, and you said it was okay to be scared. You said being brave means doing important things even when they are scary. Emma smiled. So I'm being brave. Just like you, I helped Mom catalog all the genetic samples. I learned about DNA and cellular biology and how memories are stored in the brain. I even helped First Officer Cooper with the stellar navigation maps. We marked every star system within 100 light years. Maybe someday, someone will use our maps to explore these regions. Maybe they will find planets perfect for colonies. Maybe our work will help future explorers, even though we will not be there to see it. The girl's expression became serious. Dad, I need you to promise me something. If you find this message, I need you to promise that you will not spend forever being sad. Mom and I and everyone here. We had 3 years together after you disappeared. We had time to say goodbye, to tell each other what we meant to each other. We had time to choose how we wanted to be remembered. We chose to be remembered as people who cared about the future. So promise me you will have a future too. Promise me you will keep exploring, keep learning, keep being the person who taught me to be brave. Emma wiped her eyes. I love you. Dad, I am proud to be your daughter. And someday, when you are very old and it is time for you to rest, I will be waiting for you. We all will." The recording ended. Kyle was crying openly now. But they were different tears than before. These were tears of release, of acceptance, of peace. Nicole Bennett spoke softly. "Commander, we also found the crew's final days documented in detail. Do you want to see them?" Kyle nodded. The team had assembled a timeline of auroras last month. The log showed a crew facing death with remarkable dignity. They had organized a series of ceremonies celebrating each person's life. They had recorded messages for unknown future finders. They had created a time capsule of Earth's culture in 2247. "Look at this," Henry Kim said. He displayed a section of the cultural archive contained recordings of music. From classical symphonies to popular songs of the era, there were complete novels, scientific papers, philosophical treatises. There were children's books that Emma and other young crew members had loved. There were family recipes, knitting patterns, jokes, and games. They preserved everything they could think of. Patricia marveled. They wanted to give us a complete picture of their world. Culver entered the medical bay, his massive frame barely fitting through the door. "Commander Harrison, we have found something in the cargo hold." It was sealed behind a collapsed bulkhead. They followed the engineer to the cargo section. Workers had cleared away the debris to reveal a specially constructed vault. Kyle entered the access code, and the vault opened. Inside were physical objects, carefully preserved in stasis containers. Sarah's medical scanner, then Cooper's captain's chair from the bridge, Emma's stuffed bear, worn from years of childhood love, a wedding ring. Kyle's wedding ring that Sarah had kept. Books, photographs, musical instruments, tools, clothing. Each item was labeled with the name of its owner and a brief note. Kyle picked up the stuffed bear. The label read, "Emma Harrison, age 11. This bear's name is Captain Fluffy. He was very brave." "They left these for you," Patricia said. "They wanted you to have pieces of them, real and tangible." Kyle held the bear carefully. It smelled faintly of the lavender soap Sarah had always used. He found his wedding ring and slipped it onto his finger. It fit perfectly, just as it had 500 years ago. Nicole was reading through the notes attached to various items. "Commander, listen to this. It is from Dan Cooper," she read aloud. "Kyle, if you are reading this, then you survived and found Aurora. I knew you would. You were always the most stubborn man I ever met. These items belong to your family and crew. We chose them carefully. Things that meant something to us. We want you to remember us not as people who died tragically, but as people who lived fully. We laughed, we loved, we explored, we dreamed. We were human in the best sense of the word. Take these items and build a memorial worthy of that humanity. Show the galaxy who we were." Kyle looked around at the assembled team. "Human and alien working together. That is exactly what we will do," he said. Over the following weeks, they continued restoring Aurora. The ship systems came back online one by one. The engines would never fly again, too damaged by time and radiation, but the life support, lighting, and computer systems all functioned. Team discovered that the crew had left detailed instructions for creating a memorial. They had designated specific areas of the ship for different purposes. The crew quarters would become a museum of personal stories. The medical bay would house the genetic and cultural archives. The bridge would remain exactly as Dan Cooper had left it, a frozen moment in time. The cargo hold would display the physical artifacts, and in the main hall, where the crew had gathered for their final ceremony, there would be a memorial wall. 2,000 names, one for each member of Aurora's crew. Kyle worked alongside Velther to design the memorial wall. Each name should have a brief biography. The Corvinian suggested, "Let visitors know who these people were. They spent days reviewing personnel files and personal log. Sarah Harrison, Chief Medical Officer, age 34, wife and mother, who spent her final years researching how to preserve her crew's legacy. Emma Harrison, age 11, student and aspiring captain, who faced death with courage, learned from her father, Dan Cooper, first officer, age 38, poet and leader, who guided the crew through their darkest hours. The list went on and on. Scientists, engineers, teachers, farmers, children, elders. Each person had a story. Each story mattered when the memorial wall was finally complete. Kyle stood before it for hours. He read every name, remembered every face he could recall. These were the people who had trusted him to lead them to a new world. The opening ceremony for the Aurora Memorial was scheduled for 1 year after the ship's discovery. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy had requested to attend. Kyle Harrison stood on Aurora's bridge. Adjusting his dress uniform for the 10th time, Patricia Moore entered, wearing formal robes from Earth's diplomatic corps. Nervous? She asked. Terrified, Kyle admitted. Good. She smiled. It means you care. Outside the ship, a massive crowd had gathered. Humans, Varsians, Corvinians, Delarians, and dozens of other species floated in observation. Platforms around the memorial dock. The ceremony would be broadcast across the entire Galaxy Council. Speaker Mordeth opened the event. Today, we honor the crew of Aurora, explorers who found themselves in an impossible situation and chose wisdom over power. They are a reminder that greatness is not measured by conquest, but by the choices we make when no one is watching. Ambassador Thilwyn spoke next. I have studied the logs of Aurora's crew extensively. What strikes me most is their commitment to the Prime Directive they created for themselves. They observed 9 different inhabited worlds, including my own ancestral home. In every case, they chose not to interfere. They could have used their technology to rule as gods. Instead, they watched from a distance and left us to find our own paths. A Varsian historian named Prenthil took the platform on Varsia Prime. We have cave paintings that are 47,000 years old. They show beings in the sky, watching but never landing. Our ancestors called them the silent observers and created legends about their wisdom. Now we know those legends were real. The crew of Aurora watched over our ancestors and protected them through their silence. Kyle listened to speaker after speaker honor his crew. Each species shared how Aurora's crew had influenced their ancient history, not through action, but through restraint. Finally, it was Kyle's turn to speak. He walked to the platform, looking out at thousands of faces. I have lived with guilt for 300 years, he began. When I lost Aurora, I thought I had failed my crew, my family, everyone who trusted me. I believed their deaths were meaningless, a tragic accident that accomplished nothing. His voice grew stronger, but I was wrong. My crew did not die in vain. They lived with purpose. Sarah Harrison, my wife, preserved the genetic and cultural legacy of 2,000 people. She ensured that even if we all disappeared, Earth's 23rd century would not be forgotten. Dan Cooper, my best friend, led the crew with wisdom and compassion. He made the choice to protect alien civilizations instead of exploiting them. Emma Harrison, my daughter, faced death at age 11 with more courage than most adults ever find. She chose to help others instead of giving in to fear. Kyle paused, gathering his emotions, and 1,597 other people, each with their own story, each with their own choice. They could have spent their final years in despair. Instead, they built a legacy. They cataloged stars that would guide future explorers. They documented technologies that would inspire future scientists. They created art and music and literature that would move future hearts. They left behind a message that echoes across 47,000 years. We were here. We mattered. We chose to be remembered for what we gave, not what we took. The crowd was silent, listening. Today, we open this memorial not as a tomb, but as a celebration. Aurora is not a monument to death, but to life fully lived. I invite you all to walk these corridors, to read the logs, to see the artifacts, meet my crew, learn their stories, understand their choices, and when you leave, I hope you will ask yourself, what legacy am I building? What will I be remembered for? How will I choose to live when faced with impossible odds? Kyle stepped back from the platform. The crowd erupted in applause that lasted for several minutes after the speeches ended. The memorial was officially open to visitors. Kyle led the first tour personally. Along with Patricia, Velther, and Nicole, they walked through the crew quarters, now converted to individual memorial rooms. Each crew member had a small space dedicated to their story. Visitors could read personal logs, see photographs, even listen to recorded messages in Sarah Harrison's room. Her medical journals were displayed alongside Emma's childhood drawings. One drawing showed a family of 3 holding hands under a starry sky. The caption read in a child's handwriting, "Dad, Mom, and me exploring forever." A young Corvinian child stood before the drawing for a long time. "They look happy," the child said to her parent. "They were." Kyle replied gently, "And they stayed happy even when things became difficult." That is the lesson they want to teach us. In the engineering section, the team had created interactive displays showing how the Harrison drive worked. Dr. Kim had written explanatory text that even children could understand. This engine was supposed to take humans to the stars, one display read. Instead, it took them on a journey through time. Sometimes our greatest achievements come from our mistakes, as long as we learn from them. The medical bay had been converted into a research library. Scientists could study the genetic samples Sarah had preserved already. Researchers had discovered information about human evolution and genetic diversity that had been lost over the centuries. This is incredible. A human geneticist breath. These samples show genetic markers we thought were extinct. Sarah Harrison preserved a complete snapshot of humanity's genetic diversity in 2247. Patricia smiled. She wanted to make sure that even if the crew was forgotten, their contribution to science would survive. The bridge remained unchanged, exactly as Dan Cooper had left it. His captain's chair still bore the impression of where he sat during those final months. The navigation console still showed the last star chart he had plotted. Visitors walked through the bridge in reverent silence. Kyle stood at the helm where he had once commanded. "This was my home," he said to a group of students touring the memorial. "These controls responded to my touch. These screens showed me the stars. When I left Aurora, I thought I would never see her again, but she waited for me. She crossed 47,000 years to teach me that time cannot erase love, duty, or memory." A human student raised her hand. "Commander Harrison, do you think your crew would approve of what you have built here?" Kyle considered the question carefully. "I think they would be surprised at the scale of it," he said. They were ordinary people who found themselves in an extraordinary situation. But I believe they would be proud that their story inspires others. That was what Emma wanted, for their lives to have meaning beyond their deaths. The main hall held the memorial wall with 2,000 names, but it also contained something else. A hope chamber. The crew had recorded their hopes for the future, messages about what they wished for humanity, and the galaxy. Visitors could read these messages and add their own hopes to a growing digital collection. Sarah's message read, "I hope that future humans will remember that we are stronger together than apart. That compassion is not weakness, but the foundation of true strength." Dan's message read, I hope that explorers of the future will always choose curiosity over conquest. That they will see alien civilizations not as threats or resources, but as fellow travelers in this vast universe. Emma's message read, I hope that children in the future will grow up knowing that being brave does not mean never being scared. It means doing what is right even when you are scared. And I hope they will reach for the stars like my dad taught me. Kyle stood before the memorial wall as the opening day drew to a close. Thousands of visitors had passed through Aurora's corridors. He had seen tears, heard gasps of wonder, watched children press their hands against the displays, and Patricia joined him. How do you feel? She asked. Grateful, Kyle said. For 300 years, I carried this weight alone. Now I am sharing it with the entire galaxy. That makes it lighter, Velther approached with a datapad. Commander Harrison, I have been compiling statistics from today's visitors. 97% said the memorial changed how they think about their own lives. 84% said they plan to return. And we have received requests from schools across 50 systems to bring student groups. Kyle nodded. Satisfied. Good. The crew would want their story to be educational. Nicole Bennett arrived with news. Commander, we have received a message from Earth. President Elizabeth Ross wants to speak with you. The hologram of President Ross appeared. Commander Harrison, congratulations on the memorial opening. It exceeded all expectations. Thank you, Madam President. Kyle, I am contacting you because the government has decided to make an official statement about the Aurora project and the Harrison Drive. We are declassifying all records related to the original mission. The truth about what happened in 2247 will be made public. Kyle felt a weight lift from his shoulders. That is the right decision. Secrets have kept this story hidden for too long. I agree. President Ross said, your crew deserves to be remembered honestly, not hidden behind classified documents. We are also establishing a scholarship fund in their honor. The Aurora Scholarship will support students studying space exploration, medicine, and intercultural understanding. Kyle smiled. My wife, daughter, and first officer would love that. After the president signed off, Kyle walked through Aurora one more time. The ship was quiet now. Empty of visitors, he made his way to the small cabin that had been his, and Sarah's restoration team had found photographs of his family and placed them on the desk. Sarah, in her medical uniform,